Here, he's actually in Cleveland. Coach, it's a pleasure to see you. Thank you for joining us on our first 2-hour show. We hope to have you in studio soon. How concerning was everything you read in this article?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for welcoming me back with a topic you know is near and dear to my heart.
Hot seat.
Firing people in July. So let's get to mid-July and see who we can possibly fire.
Listen, we just react to the news,
big
Coach.
losing streak,
Blame Diana Rossini for getting to the facts. It took till July to get the real story, but go ahead.
Coach,
sorry.
A-Block, I was talking about John Harbaugh going.
Yeah, exactly right.
You're coming out hot.
Yeah. Here we go.
Look, the article's, he's in a concerning position regardless of this article. Whenever you fire both coordinators, you're in a spot where there's nobody left to blame. It's on you. You've got a quarterback that you just signed to a long-term big deal, which you were a intricate part of. So you've signed off on his ability and what you think he can do. And so he's not going anywhere. So now it just comes down to you. The special teams coach isn't going to satisfy anybody, and that's the only guy who's got left to get rid of. So that's where he's at. But when you look at the idea that he was too conservative with his play calling, I don't think that's a fair narrative. I don't think that the decisions he was making were necessarily the wrong decisions from this perspective. Hurts had 15 picks last year, which was equal to the amount he had the previous two seasons. The defense was challenging at best. Okay, a significant amount of problems. So if you don't commit to running the ball, then you're just putting that defense back out in the field, which is going to obviously lead to more points, which is going to put you in a position that's more and more difficult. So trying to control the clock and take some pressure off an area of extreme weakness, that's not a bad idea either.
So before, I want to get to Jalen Hurts in a second, but before I give my take on that, there was something else in this article that struck me as outright bizarre, and I just want your perspective or history on it. Diana wrote, she said, Howie Roseman clearly has all the power. That's not unprecedented. There are certain places where the coach has more power, certain places where the GM has more power. What I couldn't believe was she explained how he picked the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, he being Howie Roseman, the GM. Coach, in your experience, how rare is it for a head coach to not have control of his own staff, and does that have any chance of being a successful kind of power dynamic?
It's pretty rare. It's not unprecedented, but it's rare. And here's another thing that I thought in reading this is, you're mad at the head coach for potentially micromanaging the quarterback, for not allowing them to make the decisions that he thinks is best, and he's trying to control his team, and he has every right to. And in being mad at him, you're micromanaging him. You're deciding who he's going to have to work with, and you continually cut his legs out. I think that the fair thing to do in this situation, if you really want to give Nick Siriani a chance to prove that he's the guy, is let him go get his own guys. Let him fail with the way that he wants to do things, as opposed to be in this situation where, he can easily take a step back and say, they weren't my guys. And look, I know it wasn't what anybody wanted in the finish of the season last year, but you got to give him credit for going 10-1. It's hard after a Super Bowl, and we see it year in and year out that the Super Bowl loser has a huge hangover. They defied all expectations to get to where they were, and it kind of caught up with them later, which makes it all look terrible.
The other piece of this that was to me a flashing red alert of concern is calling the relationship with Jalen Hurts a, quote, work in progress. They've been together for essentially Jalen's whole career.
Yeah.
Since Jalen's been the starter, he's the only coach he's had. There is not a relationship in my life that 3 years in I was like, you know what? It's not working. And then it ended up working.
Well, Josh.
No, I've always liked Josh. The closest thing's probably you and me, but we had it figured out by 18 months, buddy. So, there isn't, that to me, Coach, is really concerning. And I understand why they don't get along, or get along is probably too strong, why they have personality conflicts. They're very different people.
Yeah.
And so Jalen Hurts, people can say he's a little too cool, but I think he's just, that's the way he is. He's composed, he's thoughtful. And Sirianni's not. And you guys, everybody made fun of me for this moment in the Super Bowl.
I hope you. I love this.
This moment
video.
in the Super Bowl, not him yelling at Chiefs fans, not him doing any of this other stuff. This is in the Super Bowl. The coach is preening him. The quarterback's like, calm down.
That is weird, Coach.
And so those two people are not naturally going to be copacetic typically.
You know who you're
especially in the midst of struggles.
Okay.
What? Go ahead.
Well, this sets me up perfectly. Stoic guy who's all about football and doesn't want any of your hijinks or nonsense or preening to the crowd or doing too much.
You want Coach Mangini to leave us?
Well,
and go
Coach Mangini is also cut from the same cloth. But, Coach, do you think they had the meetings with Belichick or calls or just, let's call it a flirtation with Belichick? Do you think that ever comes to fruition, and does it weigh on Sirianni's mind? He claims it didn't.
He's got to understand the dynamics in Philly, where he wouldn't be the first head coach that had success and then was let go in that organization. So he knows what that is. And in terms of the relationship, though, Nick, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have some balance where one guy's fiery and the other guy is more calm and reserved. Usually it ends up being the other way, where the player is more fiery and the coach has to be brought down. But that can balance. You can get some good things out of that because you play off of each other's strengths. And in terms of what's changed in this relationship, they have been together, and there is Sirianni does have to continue to allow him to grow in the system. But Jalen also signed a gigantic deal. And with signing a gigantic deal comes a lot of pressure. Pressure to justify the numbers. Pressure to be something that the money dictates that you are. And with that, guys often try to do too much.
Well, on
and
that note,
players,
hold on, let me ask you a question on that, Coach. Because this is another thing that I believed that everyone made fun of me for, but now we just call the end of their season a supernatural funk and we throw it away as if there wasn't something to it. So tell me if you think this is insane, because I know I'm right. I think Jalen Hurts had more of a problem with the tush push after he got paid. I think that's a type, like, is that unreasonable for me to think that what a guy who was a second-round pick, proving himself in the league is okay doing, didn't think it was going to all of a sudden be a bigger part of the offense post him becoming a $50 million a year quarterback? If I'm wrong, then
you're not wrong. Brett Favre would not quarterback sneak. Brett Favre would not he was not going to put himself at risk, and that was not. So we'd get in those situations where it was 4th and inches, and you could walk it in with a quarterback sneak, but he wasn't going to do that. And there's a lot of guys who are like that, and it makes sense when you're making that kind of money to now put yourself, at risk over and over again in a giant pile of who knows how many pounds that is. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And it was a very effective play, and I get it. But when you start paying someone that kind of money, it's the same thing with quarterback-driven runs. You can do a bunch of them, it's fine. But every time you expose your franchise quarterback that you're paying a lot of money to getting hit an extra time, it's going to come back and catch you.
All right, let's look forward to next year, Coach. They obviously started off hot last year, then got into the supernatural funk. So there's two ways to look at the beginning of this year. Either it's, hey, fresh start. If we start 0-3, we're just 0-3, we can turn around. Or you can start adding those losses onto last year's losses. At what point, if this season starts slow, do you start to get worried about Sirianni?
Well, based off of what happened last year, everybody's going to expect to see some kind of change and some kind of change early. So it's not just starting slow. It would be how they start slow. If they're losing tight games that are highly contested, emotional, the players look like they're vested and everybody's buying into the program, that's going to be a totally different look than that last view that we saw in the playoffs where it looked like they just couldn't wait to get done with the season.
Okay, so you're saying...
So, to me, okay, there's a lot to unpack in this clip. Gosh, I don't even know where to begin, but let's just start in terms of where they ended with Nick Sirianni and you know, how much of his job is up to as that threat. The way I see it is this: the Eagles and Howie Roseman made some serious moves to put this team back in Super Bowl contention. In Philly, they're not like the Dallas Cowboys where they're just okay to make it to the playoffs and win a playoff game or so. It is Super Bowl or bust. They expect to make Super Bowls, win Super Bowls, NFC championship games. Like, that is the standard. So if Nick Sirianni does not make it to the NFC championship game, he is fired. There's no way they can make the playoffs and lose, make the playoffs, win one game. There's just no way. It has to be an NFC championship game appearance. And if they lose the NFC championship game, it better be to the Super Bowl team. It better be to a team that, you know, the Green Bay Packers, the Lions, whoever, are just unbelievable. They are just clearly just a superior team, and it's like you can't even blame Nick Sirianni. Otherwise, I don't see how he survives just, you know, even the NFC Championship appearance. And then, of course, if they make it to the Super Bowl, it'll be also a similar thing, because it'll be interesting if they get beat bad or if they lose to the Chiefs again or whoever. It's like, is it the same question where you're like, well, can Sirianni get you over the hump? You have a great roster. Do you need someone like a Bill Belichick to take you to that next level? So in a way, it feels NFC Championship game or bust, or Super Bowl or bust for Nick Sirianni, honestly. Like a Super Bowl win, not even a Super Bowl appearance. Like, he is on a hot seat. We know Howie and the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, is going to be very high on this roster, right? It's considered to be a top roster in the NFL. I think it was ranked second in the NFL. So you better show up. I know a lot of Philly fans were kind of surprised that Sirianni is even still here, quite honestly, which is really, really fascinating. So he is on the burner right now. And this idea between him and Jalen Hurts having differing personalities, and that's why they might not get along, or their relationship isn't a work in progress. First off, I took issue when Nick said that Jalen Hurts is too cool. He kind of corrected himself a little bit. Too cool means like you're too cool for school. That's not him. He's a quiet person. He's a more reserved person. That's who he is. Too cool is like Baker Mayfield is too cool. That's not Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is incredibly humble and just tries to put in the work and do the best that he can. So I took issue with the whole too cool, but I think I get what Nick was trying to say. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. But I think the truth is that Sirianni is a very real person. I said Sirianni, and so now my Siri just started talking. Sirianni, I gotta not keep saying that. I'm gonna have to just call him Nick. He is a very real person. I personally don't like him, but he is a very real person. Because of that, players like him. Players will go to bat for him because players like real. So I think one of the biggest things that players hate are people that are fake, people that don't go to bat for their own team, people that won't be in the trench holes with you, in the trenches with you, in the foxhole trenches with you. Nick is definitely like that, right? Even if he's going to fail, he will fail with you, and that is something that speaks to players. So I think players are very supportive of him, but it doesn't mean he's the guy to get you to the next level. And I think that's kind of part of the problem with a Jalen, where I think Jalen's also really smart. He's been around some really, really, really high level coaching. So he knows who knows ball and who doesn't. And I think that's kind of part of the problem with Nick, because he's just like, he wants a coach who probably can navigate an offense more efficiently, more successfully. I really think, and then when you tie that together with his personality, he's kind of just like, come on. And I think that's kind of potentially a root problem, because I think also his career wasn't going according to plan until Shane Steichen was able to step up. And when Shane Steichen stepped up and took a more commanding role over the offense, well, now Hurts got significantly better. And I think Hurts is not oblivious to that fact either. I think Hurts has a very realistic understanding of how quarterback play is impacted by various factors on a football field. I think he's been in a lot of interesting situations all the way back into college and onward. And so I think he is very aware of how important the roster is around him, an offensive line, wide receivers, coaching. I don't think he has any of these delusions where he just thinks, I can do it myself. I just put me in the driver's seat and I got this. I think he's very aware of all of these factors. So he's going to be extra, skeptical of a coach like he has right now. And I think that's I don't want to say that it's a problem. It's just not ideal. And so me and Nick are definitely in agreement there, which I know a lot of Eagles fans do not like Nick. And obviously you guys know that I'm super high on the Eagles, but I am not high on the Eagles head coach. I'm just really not. And me and him both take issue with his personality, some of his antics, and I really do wholeheartedly agree with Nick right there. I really, really do. It's not a place where the Eagles want to be from a coaching perspective, which is why I thought it was really shocking that they didn't try to go get a Ben Johnson or even take a stab at Bill Belichick. It's not like I would have been crazy about the hire for Bill Belichick, but if you're gonna keep, I think anything would have been better than keeping Siriani, honestly. So I think the Eagles are definitely in a very fascinating situation, and I think the good thing about them is that their roster is elite, and they have the coordinators now. And so if they don't have success, there really is only one person to blame. And that is a good place to be in, because at least it does give you clarity for the future, right? Either way, it ends up being a net positive for the Eagles, because they're either going to be very successful and they're going to win, and then it's like, hooray, there you go, haha, you win. Or they're not going to reach their level of expectations, and then it's obvious. You move on from Nick Sirianni. It's just, there you go. And then it becomes very cut and dry, because it's a better place to be in than where compare that to, say, the Dallas Cowboys or even the Giants. We could just keep it within the division, right? It's like, is Mike McCarthy the problem? Is Dak the problem? Do we extend Dak? Do we move on from McCarthy? Does McCarthy elevate Dak? Does Dak hold McCarthy back? Is McCarthy won a Super Bowl? Dak hasn't. What do we do here? Same thing with the Giants. Is Brian Daboll a good offensive head coach? Yes or no? Has he just not had the good enough weapons? Is it his problem that he hasn't been able to get that O-line going? Like, they're like, I don't know. Do we move on from Brian Daboll? Is Daniel Jones just such not a good quarterback? Like, you get stuck in this. The Eagles aren't stuck in there. The Eagles have the top level roster. They have great coordinators. They have the quarterback. So now it's like, all right, what do you got, Nick? What do you got? So I think either way, it ends up being a good place for them. So I'm really curious to see how this season unfolds. They're obviously a top-rated team. This idea, though, that they're going to get a slow start, like, I don't know why they're saying that they're just going to, like, lose to the Packers and the Falcons and the Saints. The Packers will be a weird game because they're playing in wherever the heck they're playing, Brazil, or I forget exactly where. The Falcons, I could easily see them starting the first 4 games like 4-1. Right, and then after the bye, and then it could be 5-1, and then 6-1, and then even if we just want to say, okay, they'll lose to the Bengals, which I'm not saying they will, but if we just want to give them the hard game, have them lose the difficult games, it's like I'm seeing. I could legitimately see them going 10-2, 10-1, 9-3, lose to the Ravens. This to me, this schedule seems very legit. I see. If we wanted to give them the most unfavorable win-loss record based off of who they're playing, let's just say they lose to the Packers. Let's just say they lose to the Bengals. They'll often split with the Cowboys, and then lose to the Ravens. There you go. It's 4 losses. So And again, that's like completely made up, just like exaggerated, because obviously we know it's not going to unfold that way, or maybe even lose to the Rams as well. So it's like they will be good enough to compete in the playoffs. It's just, will they be able to pull it off in the playoffs? To me, the regular season is irrelevant at this point because I can't see them not making the playoffs. So it's really going to come down to, can they stay healthy? Can they compete in the playoffs? Can they do good enough in the regular season, I suppose, to get maybe a bye, home field advantage, whatever it may be. So yeah, very interesting. And we know that Nick is definitely reveling in this idea that there's issues in Philly, because we all know how much he does not like Philly. So, you know, that's why he wants to exaggerate everything and say, this is a massive red flag. I've never seen anything like this before. Yeah, I mean, it's so, he is not clever in that regard. Anyone can see through that. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think that this is kind of a concerning makeup for the Eagles and the story as a whole with Nick Siriani and Jalen Hurts and all of that? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.